As a member of a tribal community, we all have a perspective to share that could be helpful to one another. We are at our strongest when we talk about the hard issues affecting all of us. We don't have all the answers, but we are going to find some of the answers together. This is Tough Medicine. Now let's meet our panelists. Tony Brown lives in the Bishop Paiute Reservation, where he has lived most of his life. He would not want to raise his kids anywhere other than his traditional homelands. He is married to Carrie Brown, and together they have 6 kids ranging from 26 down to 12 years old. Tony works for the Bishop Paiute tribe in the Food Sovereignty Program, where he has been employed for 5 years. Tony loves his job because it helps to provide healthy and locally grown food to our community. He also works with the Bishop Indian Head Start program to teach our local youth to grow food for themselves. When Tony is not working, he enjoys trying to keep himself in shape by exercising and enjoying the beautiful place he calls home. He loves watching his kids play sports and his girls holding their titles of Miss and Junior Miss Pabanamanina. Seeing his children flourish as they grow and become young adults is easily the best part of being a parent. Stephen Orhuela is an enrolled member of the Bishop Paiute tribe. Born and raised in Payahunadu, he is a descendant of the Quechua indigenous people of Peru and Duckwater Shoshone. He is currently the Secretary-Treasurer of the Bishop Paiute Tribal Council. Prior to serving on the Tribal Council, Stephen served as an executive-level officer within the tribe, where he oversaw more than 1/3 of all tribal departments. Stephen is inspired daily by his wife and their 2 daughters to make the world a better place, not just for themselves, but for the future generations. This is what propels the work that he does, and this is the main reason why he continues to carry forward. In his free time, Stephen likes to swim, hike, and lounge with his girls. Chase Whitman is a member of the Bishop Paiute tribe and a Mono descendant of the North Fork area. He is a son of Brad Whitman and the late Gail Bethel. He has 2 sons, Chase Whitman Jr. and Jackson Whitman. Chase is currently the Water Operator 1 for the Bishop Paiute Tribe's Public Works Department. On his spare time, Chase enjoys hunting, fishing, playing soccer, playing softball, and anything outside. He also enjoys old traditions such as playing hand game. Thomas Gustie comes from the Bishop Paiute Tribe, Tachi Yokut, and Pima tribes. He is 41 years old and grew up in Bishop, California. Tom first worked for the tribe when he was in high school as a tutor, and then went to the Air Force working as a radio electronics warfare technician from 2000 to 2004. His goal was to finish his electronics engineering degree, but first, he came back to Bishop after getting out of the service and started working with the tribe's environmental department. Tom intended to do a 3-month job and now has worked for the tribe ever since. He says he is still trying to finish that job I first got hired to do. Just kidding. He enjoys the work he does for the tribe, as it has given him so much more understanding of how things need to be handled. Tom's hobbies are hunting, fishing, and long walks up the steep mountains. Who taught you about fatherhood, good or bad?
When I was younger, I was born in 71, and then my dad actually passed when I was pretty young. I think he was 77. And then my mom never remarried or anything, so I didn't really have a father per se. I did have old brothers and uncles that were around that I kind of looked up to quite a bit, and I can't say all that was really good. I grew up my teenage years were in the 80s and stuff, and it was a pretty wild time back then. The people that I looked up to tended to be a little bit crazy and kind of led me down a road of substance abuse, actually. But even with that, there was a lot of good things that I took from those people that I looked up to. There was exercise. That was always a big part of pretty much everybody I knew. There was sports, weightlifting, those type of things. One uncle in particular would come over quite a bit and take us out fishing and kind of teach us about, like, man stuff, stuff like that. It wasn't kind of native way, when the parent's absent or whatever, a lot of family or even community members kind of step in to that role periodically and try to help out. So that was mainly, my father figures were relatives or other community members.
My father kind of left my upbringing when I was a toddler, so my memories of him are very limited, of course. But my interactions with him, outside of my toddler and kind of childhood years, more into the teenager type of years and kind of post adolescence, a lot of conversations we did have, always revolved around like a couple things, that he in his perspective, to kind of succeed in life was, really revolved around like heritage and like education. And he was really, really hell bent on that. And like he really drilled that into me and my older brother. And every phone call he would ask about, how we're doing in school, and are we paying attention to, not only our culture and our heritage here, but our Incan heritage, our lineage down in Southern America, because that's a pretty expansive cultural significance to us too. The matriarchs of the family really are the ones who kind of instilled a lot of stuff in me. My mother, my and my Hootsie, really drove that in me, and instilled important things for me. And like traversing through, years without a father was tough, right? Because I remember playing sports and not having that input from him or that guidance from a father figure. And where I looked around the field or whatnot, my peers, they had that input and guidance from their fathers, and I really yearned for that. But enduring that sort of pain, if you call it pain, taught me something very important about fatherhood. That is, we as fathers, we have to develop and define what fatherhood means to us, right? I strive to be an engaged father in like every aspect of life, and to be honest, it's pretty exhausting. Because from our full-time jobs to voluntary activities we do in and outside of work, I want to be in their lives, for sports, academics, emotional, and like intellectual intelligence and all that stuff, and ultimately foster an environment for our humans, right, to flourish in the real world, because that's what it's about.
I kind of picked pieces to learn from different individuals, and I learned a lot from my dad. I learned a lot about what to do and what not to do, whether he was trying to teach me or not. He wasn't always there in my life, but that wasn't his fault. I pushed him away at a young age, and I never really gave him the chance to be the dad that he deserved to be. And, I learned a lot from my grandfather. I had a lot of uncles, and even just other male figures that were in my life, for a short amount of time. I just, I picked a lot of what I want my boys to carry on, or what I want to be able to teach them. And even just like Stephen, she taught me, she raised me. My mom passed when I was young, and she taught me a lot too. So it was like, I'm where I'm at right now because of the community, and I still learn every day. There's always something new.
My dad passed away when I was 9, and even then, with our family gatherings, our family, we had a close family with my mom and her brother, and we were always together. And if the kids weren't at one house, they'll be at another house. And it was a mixture of kids. You didn't know which kids belonged where at certain times. So, having a big, huge family of kids, we also had a lot of uncles and aunties. And like I said, from being a toddler, I can remember my aunties always watching me or my uncles disciplining me. And I just knew I had eyes all over the place. So I just knew what to do and what not to do. And it's from different people. It wasn't just from my dad. Don't remember that much about him. Just that he just had a great personality. And after that, my uncle pretty much kept on visiting me. He lived far away. We always made a time to come and visit us, take us out to go fishing, go wooding or hunting. So he pretty much took on that role. It was like Chase. I just learned from other people, looking around, and even my cousins, my older cousins, learning what to do, what not to do. That I learned it from them. They weren't teaching me. I was just learning it while the things were happening. So I think just gaining a lot of street smarts from that kind of helped me develop the way I am. Just thinking about the father figures, I mean, there's a lot of people or individuals who helped me out when they knew I needed help. I mean, I had someone help me, get my driver's license. They always got up early in the morning, took me to school to do the classes on, just to make sure that I got the license, which I knew was horrible because I didn't want to have that responsibility of driving everybody around.
In retrospect, that's what I did along the way, like all the way from Pop Warner sports, all the way through high school and even through my college days, right? Like I picked and choose like these male figures who had ideals and morals and something that I really found interesting and I really had a deep respect for. I remember Coyote Mountain Camp, there were a lot of, male figures there, my peers and, their fathers, and they took us hiking, they took us fishing. We sang, songs around the campfire. We did traditional games out there, and that was something I really valued, and I really want to participate in a similar camp in the future if it does get set up again.
What are some of the things you like about our tribal community?
When family members pass or whatever, the community always I've noticed, at least for the most part, that people try to take care of like that direct family, and by bringing them food or doing whatever it is they can. I've always appreciated that about our community, of being active, for the most part. Our parents, most of our native parents push their kids to play sports or at least be active, maybe not organized sports all the time, but kids are always out riding their bikes or skateboarding or running around, going fishing and stuff. And I've always appreciated that too about our community, is that for the most part, kids are out there doing stuff to keep themselves healthy. I like the way that people look out for our elders. It seems to me that elders are well taken care of here for the most part. Especially like during this, this past thing with COVID, it seems to me that a lot of people were out there making sure elders were taken care of and had the things that they needed, going to the store for them so they didn't have to put themselves at risk.
We belong here, and I feel like in the valley, we're fighters, right? Like we've been through a lot. We've been through the settlement of non-native settlers coming in, and we fought back then and we persevered, and through the marches and through genocide and all of this stuff, and even through governmental termination and restructuring of federal governments to put native communities at a disadvantage. I think we fought every step of the way, and we're still here. And I just think we're fighters all the way around, and whatever life throws at us, whether the federal government policy or even biologically now, right, with COVID and everything, like we're going to get through it. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we were never known to back down. Even through like the water wars with DWP and all this stuff, like we fought. We're going to continue to fight. To especially like check on your neighbors, say hi, go see your neighbors you haven't talked to in a while, and because that's the extended family, right, of the tribe. We're one tribe. We're in a small land base here, and that's something that my mom would always tell me. When she was a younger girl in the 50s and 60s, it wasn't just your localized kind of family. Your immediate family, right? Like, everybody on your block here, you would talk to, you would take pies over, you would bake stuff for them, and you guys were just talking, be friends and be neighbors and be a family. And I think we're getting back around to that. I think with the pandemic brought one good thing that came from the pandemic was to really, spend more time with family, and really get to know each other, and really to, expand upon that.
This COVID really brought our people together. I mean, it kind of showed, we are looking out for one another.
What are some of the things you wish our tribal community was better at?
I think we need to start working on our future more. Our kids are they need more opportunities. They need to be able to know that there's a big world out there, I mean, I love this res, but it's good to get out of it for a little while. I'd like to see my boys go on, get out of here for a little while, and if they want to come back, we'll always be here. A lot of people, it's easier for them to say something negative about somebody than it is to say something good, just to carry on rumors, just gossip. I mean, it's always going to be like that. But I think that might be the one negative thing that I see a lot of.
I think we're really strong at having events and putting them on, getting them together, but it's just, I guess, individual stuff is we don't work together great as individuals, pulling people down. I mean, that crab effect, that's our big problem right there. That's a big, huge problem for this community, is that hearsay, the people gossiping about each other, getting on the, getting on the media and, spreading rumors or whatever, or just saying, things that, they heard, which no one's really heard, know if it's true or not, because they're too scared to go and ask that person, or go and ask, someone that it affected. We're building poor mentalities by making people feel like they're entitled to stuff. One thing that I wish we would have more is more of our youth, like, get that experience of helping people out. I mean, yes, we do have these groups and everything, but when I see the Lutherans or whoever from down south coming out and building things for our elders, doing all this stuff for our elders, or doing stuff for our departments or entities, I was like, damn, how come we don't have our people do that? They're right here, and we're waiting every other spring or fall for them to come and help us out. Like, we really need it. We don't need it. We just don't do it. That mentality that if you're going to do something, you need something in return. So I think we need to, stop doing that, which is, it's hard to do because, I've been doing events or going to events since I was a kid, and that's all I did. Is if you want people to show up, you got to provide raffles and food. And, nowadays we have all these cleanup groups. They're talking about how this area is messy. We have groups out in Bishop that are doing stuff, and they're not getting paid. They're probably getting little sandwiches here and there, but they're doing it because they want to, not because, they're going out there for a raffle or for food.
A lot of people end up leaving the area because there's not enough opportunity here, for jobs. They might have a young family. And I've never understood why our tribe essentially cuts them off from, like, per capita, for instance. Like, you move 15 miles away, oh, you're giving up per capita. I never understood that because most of the reason they're leaving is because they don't have the opportunity to support themselves, or there's not housing, things along those lines. And I've never understood why our tribe as a whole has basically says, okay, if you're moving, you're dinging yourself. You know what I mean? It's I've never understood that. I don't think I think that should maybe be revisited at some point, because they're still tribal members, whether they live here or not. I mean, you can't exclude somebody because they're trying to make a better life for them, though.
What are some of the lessons you instill in your children?
Just responsibility, like my mom worked really hard her whole life to make sure that we had what we needed. We weren't ever rich, we weren't ever like really ahead, but we always had what we needed. We weren't really ever hungry. We had clothes, we had a place to live, and she was very like, she never missed work. And I think that one thing that was instilled in me is that responsibility to make sure you do the things you're supposed to do. It's kind of crazy, but there's always that, you have to be a man, you have to be tough, you have to, and I don't so much instill like you can't cry if you're a man, like that type of thing in my kids, but I do try to teach my sons that they're responsible for taking care of like their sisters in situations. They're the ones that are supposed to be the protectors of their family. That's part of the responsibility of a warrior, so to speak, that to protect their people and make sure they're not harmed in any way. And I try to instill that in my kids and my sons especially. They shouldn't allow anyone to like put hands on them or treat them badly, for no reason. They have a right to defend themselves, and they won't get in trouble if they come home in that situation, as long as they're not the ones instigating, like being a bully or something along those lines. But they have every right to defend themselves. And I think that was, one of the things I was taught from people in my life when I was young is to always defend yourself and never let people push you around, I guess. And I've carried that on with my kids. You got to stay in good shape, and you have to be ready for those type of things. If that situation arises, you have to be physically able to protect yourself and your family. So I think those are the biggest things that I got from the people in my life.
I try to carry on everything that I've learned from all those individuals that I've, got those pieces from. And I try to carry on a lot of what I didn't have. What I really wanted, or what, as I grew up, what I missed out on, I'm trying to bring that into my boys' lives, because I think it'll be a benefit to their kids and their kids' kids, my grandchildren. Like hand game, I wasn't exposed to hand game too much when I was a kid. There was a couple times, but once I sobered up and I started playing again, then it was really a big deal. My older son, he loves it, and that's like our thing. That's like, it's something special that we really connect with. And then there's hunting and fishing, and even if they don't want to go fishing that day, they're going, and it usually ends up being a good day. But sports, just like you were saying, Brian, I try to jump out there with the coaches and give them a hand.
I'm just trying to teach them stuff that that I wish I was taught too, because like my dad passed away a long time ago. So mechanics, putting stuff together. If there's a problem around the house or something, always have a solution. Don't be crying around and asking all the time. Just find a way to fix it. And my uncle always did that to me, and mainly because he wasn't around. He was like, "Well, how are you going to fix it?" So that's just one thing that I try to do with my kids is try to make them think about how to fix it before asking. But working for your keep. That's one thing that if you're going to be around, if you want to go play, you have to do a lot of work. So that's one thing that I always try to make my kids do too. I got till they're 18 to teach them what I know, because after that they're going to be on their own. I hope they want to be or can be on their own. That's my goal, is to teach them as much as I can so they can be on their own.
How do you talk to your children about drugs and alcohol?
This one has affected me personally. You know, I've been in recovery for a little over 12 years now. Um, I'm an addict and an alcoholic. You know that I was for or am, but I was in active use for, you know, the majority of my life. I started really young, like 11, 12 years old. Uh, got sober when I was 37. You would think when you're younger and watching people go through, man, this guy's always drunk or always wasted, and he's always in and out of jail, and he's always, you know, trying to heal up from getting hurt somehow, that you would learn from that, or young people would learn from that and be like, okay, I'm not going to do that. That's not the way it works. You know, a lot of the times the younger people will be like, man, I want to be like him, which, you know, it goes both ways, is what I'm saying, I guess. And you know, it did for me. I chose to start using when I was really young, and it led to, you know, a hard life, to be honest with you. You know, in and out of jail, rehab. You know, I was in juvenile hall and group homes when I was a juvenile, prison a couple times as an adult. You know, I spent like 10 years, cumulative 10 years of my life locked away somewhere in a cell. You know, as for myself, when I had counselors, I could tell when I had counselors that came from that style of life, or that didn't, that read it out of a book, that had never had that problem. I could tell the difference. And I didn't care to hear anything from the people that didn't really live that life, because they don't really know. You know, I mean, they could read it in a book, but they don't really know what it's like. So the people that I listened to were the ones that I could tell have been through it and gone through it and had the same problem. That there is a life without having to use drugs and alcohol. There is, you know, you can have fun without having to get high, without having to drink all the time. You know, some people can handle that, you know, have a drink here and have fun with it and then go home and be fine. People like myself, they can't, because they don't know when to stop, because it's not always a person's choice. You know, it is a choice to begin with, but after a while it becomes a way of life, and it's just the way it is.
With my upbringing, you know, with my family being so strict about it and like zero tolerance about it, you know, like I would be grounded. I would I would get my butt whooped. I would not be able to go spend the night at my friend's house. I would not be able to engage in sports activities and all that. Like they were really strict. So, you know, I just, you know, I kind of isolated myself from that stuff for a long time throughout high school and stuff, and maybe throughout college. We drank and underage drinking, and probably smoked a little cannabis and all this stuff, right? Like people do it, they experiment. I was there. I never really got too wrapped up in it, but I was there for a short period of time. But to teach the young men about it in our community. It's a little bit different for me because I got two daughters, right? But that doesn't mean I still can't talk about it with like my nephew, for instance. Guide him through that along with his father. There's no way that us as parents can really guarantee that our rules and our guidelines aren't going to get broken, right? I mean, it's just bound to happen. Like teenagers are going to be teenagers, and it's going to happen at some point. In high school, like I mentioned, drinking and getting involved with this stuff. I never pushed too far beyond that because my family was so strict about it. So I didn't want to go too far and then get everything taken away, right? And then just be so restricted that I couldn't do anything, just like go to school and go home, right? And I felt like for the most part that did its job, and I really respect my family for being so tough on me about that.
If they want to know about my past, all they have to do is ask me. If anything comes up with them, I'm going to give them a straight answer. I remember I told my boys, you guys ever go to jail, I'm going to catch a charge just to go back there and kick your ass. So I hope that sticks with them. I think the best thing you could do for our children is to show them a life without drugs and alcohol. Show them how good life is without that. For me, it all started with alcohol. When I was young, and then started smoking weed. Eventually I was doing meth, whatever I could find, whatever sounded good that day. But meth and alcohol was when I was at my lowest, meth, alcohol was I needed that just to function on the daily. And if I came across anything else, that was just a bonus. But I was in and out of jail, prison, rehab. I think I'm the only person that has graduated drug court twice. And that last run that I had, it really hit me hard. You know, I was on the run, and I was at the point where when I got arrested, I was happy because I got to start over. I just try to stay active. When my boys are here with me, I mean, if we have time, we're going out fishing or whatever they got going on, you know. I mean, they go ride horses, whatever we can do. You know, I try to take them on trips. Usually every year we go to a Dodgers game. We'll go check out the beach. You know, we'll cruise around Venice Beach just because it's crazy down there, you know. There's always something going on down there. I just want to show them how good life is without drugs and alcohol.
But one thing too is learning what not to do. And you know, I don't consider anybody who has a record a bad person. They're just a person who just got caught. I was a lucky one. I did probably as much stuff as other people, but I was just lucky enough not to get caught and have a record. So that's just, you know, for me, and seeing that, I would teach my kids, you know, or talk to my kids about how to surround yourself from, you know, the right people.
Teaching your children about domestic violence and how to treat their partners.
You know, I think one of the best ways to teach, especially our daughters, but well, I shouldn't even say it like that, because young men need to know how to treat women as well, and should be taught at home. You know, I think that's the first place they should learn how to treat their significant other, even their friends, female friends, male friends, whichever, you know, way it goes. By the way their parents treat each other. We don't like scream and yell at each other and get crazy, you know. We could talk it out and we could figure things out. And if things, you know, if things get to the point where it's like it's not going to be settled at that point, I'll leave it alone. You know, I'll do something else for a while until I could cool off and think rationally, and then go back and try to figure it out. But I think that's probably one of the most important things, is to let them see how things can be figured out without having to get, you know, violent or crazy or confrontational.
A lot of that stems from the, you know, from the home, you know, whether it's a single parent or a, you know, 2-parent household or a multi-parent household. You know, we as parents have to, you know, we have to do our best to lead by example, right? And model the values that we want, you know, that we want our children to inherit, and what they're gonna implement on their relationships, right, in the real world. And they see it, they hear you, they visualize it, and they interpret it and internalize stuff that we say and what we do. We lead by our actions, and that's the strongest sense that we have to be mindful of. Not all conflicts are bad, right? You know, some of them are good too. Like, you know, whatever they're going to do as a family, you know, you're going to compromise on something. Doesn't mean you guys are arguing or, you know, yelling curse words at each other. And then for them to understand, you know, their activities and understand the signs of, you know, abusive relationships and stuff, you know, whether it's physical, you know, or verbal, you know, those are all signs, and, you know, make sure they're familiar with it. And, you know, and if they are in a, you know, in a bad relationship, you know, how to get out and how to resolve that.
How they see people being treated is what they're going to think is okay or what's right.
It starts from home. You know, that's where I learned how to interact with people or treat people, is, you know, with the family around me. And, you know, I've learned from some people that, you know, some of those habits are bad habits. You know, you shouldn't be treating people like that.
Educating our children about sexual assault.
You know, we try to instill in our children, you know, to really understand their body parts, right, at a young age, right, and to not, you know, call it some arbitrary name or something, but to tell them, this is what the body part is. This is the actual name of it. Nobody should, touch you without permission, right? Whether it's, family or friends, like nobody should touch you without your permission. And if somebody does violate that, let us know, let somebody know, and it will be dealt with. It could go on, it could be, yeah, it could fly under the radar for years before they're ready to open up about that and have that conversation. But I think it's about communicating and really treating your teenagers and children about this stuff and having that dialogue and treating them like the adult you want them to be in the future. I think that's super important.
It's not like it's just because they're boys that stuff like this won't happen. I tell my boys, I probably don't tell them enough that they could talk to me about anything. I'm sure there's stuff that they just won't feel comfortable sharing with me, but I'm totally willing, to give them my 2 cents or whatever. If somebody does something to you, you need to speak up, especially for kids. That's a big deal. It probably goes on a lot more than we know.
Yeah, having them feel okay that it's okay to tell on another family member. I mean, that's a big thing. My thought is, it's not outsiders, it's not people from outside who are, taking our women or the raping and all that stuff, or the molestation. Majority is family, and we're just not saying anything because we know, like, oh, it's my cousin, but I'm not gonna say anything. He can't go to jail, or she can't, or whatever. So I mean, I think it's us having that safety of it's okay to, I guess, to speak up and say something about our family members. And I think we're just have so much pride that we don't do it. With my daughter right now, I'm teaching her how to defend herself, because you never know. And I tell her, like, you never know. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a teacher or whatever. But she knows how to use a bat, she knows how to use a rock, she knows how to get out of situations, and always be kind of vigilant when you're feeling kind of uncertain of a situation you're in. I don't know if it's my military background that I have, but I'm always having them be vigilant, always look around, even when just walking around. Because if you're walking around at school or whatever, just look around. Don't just keep your face in the phone or anything. Is always look around. There's things that can always happen. Kids get picked up from the side of the road. So we always teach them how to run to the house, to know our neighbors and stuff like that, know who's who, and stuff like that. Teaching them that tactical stuff is something I'm good at, but as for the one-on-one with the body parts and all that stuff, that's not my stuff. I would love to go to a workshop and learn how to do that.
Closing comments for new fathers and the community.
One thing that I didn't do when I was younger, because I started using and drinking when I was so young, is I never really paid attention to our culture until I was a little bit older, and really more so when I got sober. But for anybody that's younger out there that might be struggling and trying to find a direction, I would think start learning about our culture, start learning about the ways that our people did things before we had these pocket computers and all the stuff that there is today. That stuff's always going to be there. Our culture might not be there that much longer if our younger people aren't picking it up and carrying it on.
We're supposed to be the rock. We're the rock of the family. They can always rely on us. And that was one reason why I really needed to sober up. I saw what I was going through and what they were going through. And I don't know, it was the best change I've made. The best decision I've ever made in my life was to be a father before anything. I think put that before everything. be careful who you hang around. If you want to be a fireman, hang out with firemen. If you want to be a cop, hang out with cops. You are what you make yourself. You know, you are your environment. Being an addict, when I used to use, there was, I knew I was doing the wrong thing. I was just waiting for an opportunity to get out of it. You don't have to live like that forever. I mean, I always say it, I don't have to live like that anymore. You know, whether it be using or just little stuff. I kind of say it as a joke, but I say that to other people. When I say it to other people, I'm also saying it to myself, you know, just a reminder. You could change your life anytime you want. If you're already going down the wrong road, you don't have to live like that forever. You know, ask for help. There's always somebody out there.
It's great to hear everybody's, thoughts and stories. And I picked up a lot of that stuff just from 3 guys here. And there's probably, hundreds of guys that we could be talking to and get more information and kind of, I guess, collaborate or kind of lean on each other for that. Fatherhood, it was new to me. I didn't want it. I was planning to not have any kids at all. That was my goal. But what fate had its own plans for me, and I think I did a good job trying to adapt.
Just being a parent, like, enjoy it, because it flies by. Like 5 years for my firstborn, it just flew by like a snap of a finger. It just flew by because we're so busy working, doing school, or doing whatever we're doing, our day-to-day life. It flies by. So enjoy it and be active and engage with them on every aspect if you can. And if you're struggling, reach out to family members or anybody. Just pick up the phone and call, text. Somebody's always willing to help somebody out, especially if they've been there and they've done that. And they don't even have to be family. Like, there are services everywhere available, and pick up the phone and just establish that communication too.
And you have to listen. Sometimes it's hard for me to listen because I like to preach, I guess you could say. I like to be the one saying stuff, not the one having to hear stuff. So and kids need to be listened to. That's super important because it gives them validation of who they are. You know what I mean? It makes them feel like they're important, and they are important. That's our future.
I know I have a story of a good friend of mine that I grew up with. He lost his boy. He was very young. So as for the fathers and you guys too, if you ever feel like that anger, you want to take it on your kids because they did something, they might not be there the next day. So that's what I try to keep in my head, and it keeps me from yelling. It keeps me from going off on the edge with them.
I want to say, even as a father myself, hearing some of the things you guys have said have really resonated with me, all for you. And it's a hard thing, I know, for dads and for guys in general to open up and to share a little bit about themselves, about even their parenting skills. It's like we get so caught up in not wanting to be judged or not wanting to be evaluated, and it's like at the same time, everyone's still trying to do the same thing. Everyone's trying to figure out how to be a dad and how to be a father, and or even the mothers that have to take that role, which I know some of us are an example of some maternal parenting that is filled those gaps and has really helped us in our development to be young men, and that's been really helpful. And I just hope people listening to this episode will, of course, be able to relate, if they need help and services to reach out, but to be able to have these conversations with each other and amongst people that they trust. Like you said, Tom, you mentioned, you're just three other guys, and I've learned so much. Imagine, like I said, imagine if our community opens up and it communicates with each other more and is able to learn from each other and support each other, how much more stronger our community would be. That'd be really important. But again, thank you guys for your time and your words and your life experiences, and hopefully people can really take what you said to heart, to where they don't have to relive what you guys lived to learn the lesson that you're willing to share today. Maybe they can take it and be able to use it, so they don't have to waste years of their lives getting to where you guys are now. Miss out on younger years of their kids and of their families. That's important. Nirongovi toyo magwe kimaru, Nirongovi toyo magwe kimaru, Nirongovi toyo magwe kimaru, Pawina nawawi, Pawina nawawi.